Robinson. Welcome to this edition of County Happenings, where we talk with the County Mayor, Rogers Anderson, about what's going on in Williamson County.
How are you today?
I'm doing pretty well.
I think a lot of us around the complex today are got droopy eyes from staying up late watching the Predators last night.
Go Preds!
They are exciting to watch.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. I didn't get a chance to watch because I was at a community meeting and in our little Greenbrier community. We try to get together every couple months.
You might tell people where Greenbrier's at. I bet the average person thinks you're going to Springfield.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's a little crossroads off of Pinewood Road, Bending Chestnut, Greenbrier Road, and Garrison Road becomes Greenbrier Road at the corner of Bending Chestnut, where Fox's grocery store is.
I'm not sure anybody could follow those instructions.
Over by the landfill.
There you go. Greenbrier's a beautiful part of our county.
It really is.
Very few people know about it.
Although,
there's not a lot of development out there.
No, not a lot. But people are moving in. New people are moving in, but they're moving into older homes,
Yes.
homes that have been, and we've got some lovely new neighbors. That's why we try to get together and get the neighbors, get to know the neighbors.
Actually, I think lead us into a conversation. I believe they're having a supper out at the Greenbrier Methodist Church out there for one of the political potlucks that are coming up. I know we don't get into politics on this show, but they've sent notice that there's going to be a bean supper out in that area, and they highly suggest that we get there early because when they run out, they run out.
Yeah,
they don't fix a lot of eggs.
No, they don't.
I know. I haven't been out there in a couple of years, but I'll try to go to that. It's a beautiful part of our city.
It's beautiful, and where our community center is, there's the Methodist Church. It's right on a corner, Greenbrier Hill and Greenbrier Road, and the community cemetery, which is kind of unusual. We've got a cemetery where anybody in the community can be buried, and it's no cost. And although we do take donations to keep it up, but it's just a sweet area.
Well, the best way to get to it, if people watching this just want a good Sunday afternoon drive, or go out on, as you said, go towards Leaper's Fork, and don't turn on Pinewood Road. Turn the next road, I believe, is Garrison Road. Take Garrison Road all the way up to Bending Chestnut,
and just keep going.
Just keep on going, and you'll run into a beautiful mountain of trees.
Yes. Bending Chestnut Road got its name from the Indians used to bend the chestnut trees to make the trails, and Greenbrier is off, like Garrison, and it's winding country road with you're going right across the ridge, and it's pretty. It's pretty.
In fact, the county helps to maintain. We own that pavilion out there. Or we don't own it.
Our community center.
The community center, correct.
It's the county community,
And the county, every year we put a few dollars in to help paint it, fix it up, knock the wasp nest off. But it is, going that area or going to Flat Creek are about the same. They're both very rural,
pretty,
very pretty parts of our county. You just can't imagine coming out of Franklin or Brentwood where there's development and growth almost on every corner. And out there, there's miles of miles of
and you go down Greenbrier Road, in just another week or so, all the dogwoods and redbuds will be blooming alongside the road. It is just so pretty. Yeah.
Well, that leads us, I guess, kind of in. We're in the political season.
Yeah.
I would ask everyone that's watching this show that early voting is going on. May 1st is the actual election date. Every single county commission spot, there's 24 county
seats.
Commissioners, 2 per district, so that every single district has opposition or opponents or someone is running in that race. So spend some time to know those men and women that are investing their time and energy to run, because they're the ones that actually vote on a monthly basis. Then there are other races, the sheriff's on a...
All the county offices, except the property assessor.
Yeah. It's the only one. So this is, I've always said, at the local level, There's more influence on your tax dollars and policy than that comes out of Washington.
Yeah, and yeah, it's that all politics is local.
Yes.
And that's where people have the most influence.
May 1st, wherever you're assigned to vote at one of the precincts, there's some 43 precincts in our county, and whatever your little card says, that's where you have to go to vote. Early voting locations, you cannot vote on the day of the election at early voting.
Right.
You have to go to your precinct, and many people, although early voting, we
We do
get
have some
about,
satellites. You can vote here at the administrative complex, and then there's a
there's
couple.
Brentwood's the only one, and then next week, they'll open up a few more areas, but
yeah.
the first two early votings are always at the complex and at Brentwood Library, and then they'll open up some more, but I do encourage people to spend some time on May 1 to go out and vote. Polls are open from 7 to 7.
I love voting on election day because I get to see a lot of my
Yeah.
neighbors I don't get a chance to see.
About 50% of our community votes early, but there's a whole bunch of people like you that on election day is the day they're going to vote.
Yeah, I feel like it's more voting on election day.
It is that.
It is. But, and what we're voting for are exactly what's going on with the budget. One of those things, controlling what costs and what our tax money is going to.
So we are in the middle of our budget processes where we are today. We've heard the first presentation by the schools. The schools consume about 70% of your budget, so the other 64 of it, 63 to 64% is for their operational, and then you've got some debt in there. So about 70 to 72% of all the monies we receive go back in for public education in some form or fashion. It could be for buildings, it could be for land, it could be for salaries. The bulk of the operations of schools, 85-ish%, is all designed around the pay, the salary of the teachers, the principals, the TAs, and all the support staff that goes with that. The vast majority of the
Maintenance.
maintenance takes a lot of people to run a nearly 4,000 student
Population.
public school system. Excuse me, 40,000. I said four, about 40,000. We got about 4,000 teachers and administrators that go along with that. So about all the funding that goes in is for programs, and then of course you got the debt side. The other 30% is looking at the individual budgets, from the sheriffs all the way down to the judges and all points in between.
And with all the growth in the schools, there's also more need for deputies and all the other services.
One of the fastest growing areas of our public safety, which sheriff falls under, will be in the area of SROs, student resource officers, that are in all of our schools. We have approximately 45 schools. We will open up 2 new schools, 3 some people call it, in August of this year. We have an elementary, a middle school opening up in the Thompson Station area off from Kreitz Lane. And then we have a STEMS building, science, technology,
Engineering, and math.
that will open up in the Brentwood area. That one's a little bit later than August. They're running a little behind on that. But to open up a new middle school, when you put the key in and unlock it, it runs about $1.6 million just for the middle school, and then the elementary school is about $1.4 million for your personnel. That we talk about the operations of a school, and I say that because when you look at the sheriff, he's got close to 400 men and women now that serve our community. About 60 of those are SROs now that go into our schools.
Which is something that we didn't have.
No.
it's been 10 years now? No, not even that. It's been less
The
than that.
Sandy Hook incident is where what triggered us
So
to
that was
get
about
into
5 or 6 years ago.
So since that period of time, we have men and women that are positioned in all of our schools, Franklin Special as well as the county school system, that the oversight of that comes through Jeff Long. Now, at the high school level, if the school size is over 1,500 population, then you'll have two. But otherwise, those smaller high schools will only have one. We've even fed those down into the middle schools now and to our elementary school that gives us this magic
Because
number.
initially, when the whole SRO program started, it was just in the high schools.
That's correct.
And then if there were middle schools close to the high school, they served both.
Yeah.
But after Sandy Hook, now there's one in every
Changed it.
school. And these are armed officers. These are not officers walking around with a billy club.
And they're specially trained for that environment. They have some schooling they have to do. But each one of those officers does have the vest on, the weapon on, and they're there not to direct traffic.
They're there to protect.
They're there to protect, and they build a wonderful rapport with all of our students. And the students oftentimes will share information with our student resource officers about things that are going on in the school that can oftentimes help us to mitigate maybe something that's coming up. It could be a couple of guys decide they want to bring a 6-pack of beer in and put it in their closet. Well, somebody will tell on them.
Yeah, because there's not enough for everybody.
There's not enough for everybody. Well, what we found out with the SROs is that if you have a good SRO and that person has tremendous responsibility that these men and women do, they can eliminate a lot of the issues we've got going on. So you put the math to it. If we got 45 schools and you got 60 some odd different SROs, why do you have more? Well, you've got to have relief personnel. You've got sick time, vacation time. You've got supervisors that have to look over them. So,
And we got a couple schools that are more than 1,500.
oh, yes, we do. So, for the most part, the SROs work the same school schedule so that in the summertime, they take their vacation and they're back out on patrol. But they're also going through additional training. They're going through firing range training. And I'm proud to see us step up and put SROs in our schools long before the state of Tennessee acknowledged. And now, we don't get the money back for that. That's 100% tax dollars, except for in the high school. But our community has told us over and over, this is a priority that we would like for our tax dollars to be paying for.
Now, is there a possibility that going forward, the county will start getting money from the state for the SROs?
So, as you know, as this show's being taped, the legislators are in session right now, and there are some school safety items that are on the dockets to help schools. I think the governor has earmarked, and I think the legislators will go along with that, some additional things that will help a lot of our schools. Like, all of our schools have cameras, all of the hallways have cameras. All of the schools have good communication. As you know, that's a key component when something does happen at a school. We know who's in there, where they're at, and the cameras and the phone systems that we have, the radios. That's so critical at that time.
And that's all local taxpayer money that's paid for this?
Except for the SROs at the high school level. But again, it's your tax dollars, whether it's coming from the state or it's coming from your local tax dollars. It's your money that's protecting our children. And I think that's the right thing. I know that's the right thing for us to do, because there's nothing in this world that's more important than the next generation of our children, as far as training them, providing a safe haven for them to go to school and learn. So I do think money will come down from Nashville, maybe even some out of Washington, and some of the rural schools just can't afford to do some of the things that we do. But the cases, the bad incidents that are occurring in our nation, they don't just happen at the real popular school in town. They happen at the rural side of the school where many people are trying to look at how do you deal with this whole safety issue. In fact, where I go to church, I hear it now over and over and over. Our church is now becoming almost a fortress. That during a particular year services, I know there are many churches in our community trying to not discourage people from going to church, but at the same time not building a prison that you can't get in. And that's the same way with our schools. There's one entry point. You got to go in. You got to have a picture ID. You got to log in, and you're not going to be just allowed to walk the halls. And some of the biggest issues with that are kids that graduate and want to come back.
Yeah.
Parents understand it, but the back door may be propped open for somebody to come in and pick up so-and-so, and some very serious things are going to happen over the next few years with our personnel that do that if they're caught. And those cameras will catch you. So we have a central control site. We look at that, monitor that, and it's constantly being reviewed, and hopefully that those kind of incidents can be mitigated before they ever get too catastrophic.
Yeah, and the community needs to feel needs to feel safe, knowing that, or good knowing that the county is proactive, but don't be compliant. Don't get complacent. Yeah, just.
Well, my point of bringing it up was not to try to scare everybody, but present everybody that this county is taking precautionary measures. But it was a cost just 5 or 6 years ago. It was zero, and today it's several millions of dollars because each officer has to have the uniforms, the equipment, has to have an automobile, the radio, the weaponry that they need to have at each one of those. And then
the training.
And the training, and the certification. And then you look at all the extras that you have to have in a school, which are way beyond the manpower, the cameras, the automatic locked doors.
Well, in some of the schools, the older schools had to be rerouted.
Oh, yeah.
So that meant renovating.
Yeah, it's a huge cost that no one, if you were doing a 5-year plan or certainly a 10-year plan, you didn't think about it back then.
That was not part of it.
That's true. But our budget, going back to budget, our budget process is going good. The budget committee, which is chaired by Paul Webb this year, took a vote early on and was no way were they going to ask for a property tax increase because that's what the commissioners have said they wanted. And we think the sales tax referendum, which is it's in place, you're paying 0.5 more on those items starting on May 1, and that money goes for bricks and mortars of your school. But it's going to be a tight budget because you're opening 2-3 new schools, new personnel are needing, and we're growing at the tax level, at the property tax level, based upon the new people moving in. We're growing at about 3.75 to 4.25. Now, a lot of people say, well, how can that be? We're growing much faster than it. Well, a lot of people come into your community, they're not property owners.
Right.
A lot of our traffic problems that we've got, as you know, from Arnold Road and Sneed Road and some of the Columbia Avenue, they're people coming through your town, through your roads to go to work. But our actual growth in real dollars and property is right at 4%. Now, as we get closer to the end of our fiscal year, which is June 30th, that number may slightly go up, and I think it will.
What is the growth rate compared to the property?
So the growth, we look at the growth rate within our property, and that's that 4% number approximately that we look at. But when we look at people coming into the area, new population, it's certainly higher than that. But a lot of people move into apartments. A lot of people move into townhouses, and they wouldn't be individual property owners.
Right.
Now, they have the right to vote. They live here. That's their resident. but they certainly would not. We're growing, Carol, to give you an idea, at the 2010 census, we had about 84,000 people. We're now at about 220,000 people. So in a 10-year window, we've grown about nearly 40,000 people. So you divide 10 into 40,000, you're getting 4,000 people coming into your community every year, and you break that down into per day and all that. The numbers that are coming out of Nashville, and they grade those things on MSA, Metropolitan Statistical data that they put together, that Middle Tennessee is literally growing 100 people a day. Now, I believe that most of those wind up in Davidson County, but there's some that goes to Wilson and Rutherford and certainly Williamson County. And Montgomery County is in that MSA number, and Montgomery County is all indicative on the military.
Right.
So as our activities increase, Montgomery County and Clarksville, up in the Clarksville area, on those heavy periods of time where there's a lot of military involvement, their numbers, their schools they can swell almost overnight by the men and women they're bringing in for training and for basic and et cetera. Right now it's kind of steady, but I was talking to the county mayor a couple of months back, and as the military gears up, it really presents a problem for them, because all those children that come in,
They need to be educated.
they need to be educated. Now, fortunately for him, the military does put some money in, the federal dollars, to help some of the basics, but you don't just build a wing onto a school when you've got 100 extra kids coming to town.
Yeah, and especially because it ebbs and flows. So, 1 year you're going to have 100 extra, and next year you're going to have 200 fewer.
Yep.
So you've got the empty spaces that.
For the most part, because your husband was in the military like I was, the wives and the children stay behind the dad, or now the women, they may be deployed, but somebody's got to stay at home with the kids,
Right.
for the most part. And that happens in Clarksville quite frequently. That's the largest military city, county that we've got in the area. Now, a little bit over in Smyrna, but very, very little. It's interesting. I mean, we talk about growth every year. It's about 1,500 children a year. This year it's down a little bit, but it's still 1,350.
It's not like it's down to 500.
Yeah, it's no. So every 750 to 800 new students, you got to be planning for a new school, usually a new elementary school. So that's why we're always seem to be building. And there's some people think, well, what's going to happen 10 years out, 20 years out when you don't have this growth? I think they're going to come here for the next 10 years and 20 years, because it's a great place to live and work and worship and have that quality of life we've all come to accept and enjoy.
And people are coming for business, and there's just recently been an economic development and chamber meeting that discussed what's going on in businesses. What type of businesses? Now, we've seen major headquarters of major companies come. And has that kind of stabilized? Are we seeing any more of that?
No,
or
it's still growing. The large corporations, the Nissans, the Jacksons, and the Verizon, those types of large companies, Tractor Supply. The last one, Mars. You've got Dave Ramsey's company, the Lee Company. Those are some of the larger employees that bring 500 to 800 new people. Some of them are still under construction, but on a day-by-day, weekly basis, we have a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of restaurants, a lot of retail space that pops up as you go out. As you go out to the mall, you can see they're expanding, and the little shopping centers that pop up. So you have a lot of that. We get about 200 on an average business permits per month. And they go down to Miss Elaine Anderson's office. And so we kind of look at those, and they're everything from landscaping all the way to a major corporation coming to town. That doesn't distinguish. You got to have a business license to do business. But IT, workforce issues, healthcare, all still large, but the largest percentage of our growth, Carol, occurs within the existing businesses.
Well, that's good.
And
So the businesses that are here
need more people.
are doing well.
That's right. They're doing very well, they're growing, and when you talk about new growth numbers, our unemployment numbers are the lowest of anybody across the state, and one of the lowest in the nation.
Under 3%.
Under 3%, and you get under 2.5%, about everybody that's working.
Who wants a job's got a job.
That's correct. So we have a lot of IT jobs too, a lot of creative men and women out there finding solutions for things. More and more people working from home. Not everybody has to have a bricks and mortar store to go to work.
Right.
As you are in the communication of what you do, you can do a lot of your work at home.
And am.
and enjoy that.
Yes.
And do your work in your pajamas and your little bunny shoes.
Yes. Ooh. Yeah, and when I feel like I want to get outside, I go and play in the garden.
Yep.
It's nice.
But it is still growing.
It's still growing.
And this community, I think, offers so many quality issues. So from a budgetary, how do we pay for all this?
Right.
And balancing it, keep our tax base low, charge people that move into your community more than the existing taxpayers.
But that's just initially. And,
Sure.
And that's, I mean, it's not, I shouldn't say just, because it's a heavy price on new construction. But it's better than paying, we've already paid for our share.
Well, and all of us, for the most part, have realized an appreciative value in your property. If it's a house, if whatever it happens to be. So you may have paid X for it, and today it's worth this. Well, we take what the new value is to calculate our tax base. So you do have growth in that area. It could go the other way. There are, if you remember 10 years ago during 07, 08, and 09, when the economy kind of went south for a year or two, then those values stabilized. But Williamson County, because we have so much diversity, and diversity to me in this conversation means diversity in the type of workforce. You're not just tied to the automobile industry. You're not just tied to the banking industry. We've got a lot of different jobs that even in the hard times, healthcare does good in difficult times, for an example.
Well, we've done good. They're giving us the high sign. And so we will see you next time on County Happenings. Thanks for coming.
The signs are everywhere. Sometimes you just have to take a second look. Human trafficking is modern-day slavery, and it happens in our own communities. Victims can be any gender, age, or race. Join the Department of Homeland Security's Blue Campaign to learn how to recognize and report this heinous crime. Your second look could be their second chance.